So, welcome back to the Man On podcast. We are delighted today to be joined with a special guest, Gordon Duncan, and we'll come to Gordon in a second. We're also joined by Mick and Moody. Mick, how's yourself, mate? You alright?
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Hectic day, but we've made it. We've got everybody on, so quite happy. How
Good
yourself, yeah?
stuff. Aye, okay, mate. You get Scotland tap on there for the occasion there, I see.
Special occasion. I'm not wearing my Celtic one, so that's what I need to do.
I don't blame you, mate. I don't blame you. Right, cheers for that. Moody, how's things with yourself?
I'm not bad, mate. I don't have a Scotland tap, so I can't be a wee teacher's pet like Mick. But aye, not bad. Working actually. This is on a wee break here, doing it. So I get that joy to go back to after this. But I'm not bad, mate. Cheers.
Appreciate your time, mate. Thank you. And Gordon, we'll come to yourself. Obviously, our guest on the podcast. Thanks very much for coming on today. How's things with yourself?
All good. I mean, I kept you lads waiting because I got myself locked out of the house, so we're off to a good start. But I'm here now. I had to get my wife to come and rescue me and pick me up and let me back into the house. So we're all good, and I'm looking forward to chatting to you.
Good, mate. Good. Thanks again for coming along. I know you're a busy guy. But we'll just kick off with where things are at with yourself at the minute. You are the host of probably the busiest football show in terms of radio in Scotland, and Clyde Superscoreboard. I've been listening to it a lot over the last 8 months, personally, for obvious reasons. I don't think Mick has been, to be fair. But aye, it's a great show, to be honest. I just wanted to touch on our podcast is obviously looking at mental health and wellbeing. And our group, effectively, with the connection is football. And a big thing for me with Super Scoreboard, especially on a Saturday, Saturdays have been amazing on Super Scoreboard, is it really has played a part in, you know, bringing people together and listening. Your listening figures must be through the roof at the minute in terms of streaming or other...
Yep.
Other areas, but it's, as I say, it's played a massive part. I think the laugh that the guys obviously have on the Saturday, even when it's not talking about football, has kept me going personally. And I know that the shows midweek, which we'll come on to, have obviously done a good bit for people as well in that regard. So how's it been for yourself the last 12 months, the journey in lockdown, and obviously your own personal journey? Because I know you're a new dad as well, and also the football sort of Clyde One sort of journey too over the last year.
Well, it's interesting because it's a great time, and I think we're looking at it. We're pretty much bang on a year, aren't we, since the last kind of round of games before lockdown. I think it's this weekend, and then next week will be 1 year for Rangers Leverkusen, which was the last game hosted here in front of fans. And obviously that was a big busy time because there was an Old Firm game due to come that weekend. And then when football got called off, I remember being a bit sort of just selfishly, you know, you look after your own side of things first, thinking, right, what's this going to mean? Like, will they need to cancel the show for a little bit? Will I be out of a job for a little bit? Because, I mean, if there's no football, what are we going to talk about? And I remember being pretty kind of anxious about what the immediate future was going to hold in that regard. And then weirdly, the show just took off from there. And I remember at the start when we didn't really know what was happening. And like you say, it was just about then just trying to bring folk together, give people a sense of familiarity. Whilst everything else was changing and everything else was up in there, we were trying to be that one sort of constant, still there every night, and we didn't have games to talk about. So, you know, it was just about getting a bit more creative and maybe talking about, you know, things from the past, taking people on a trip down memory lane. People love their football nostalgia, don't they? Like being able to remember previous games or goals or players or strips or stadia or whatever it may be. So that really started happening, and then it just took on. It started feeling different. Like there's still that same madness, right, where people will phone up and moan about referees or conspiracies or whatever, but it has started to feel different, and a lot of people have been kind of getting in touch. A lot of people, way more than I expected, getting in touch and saying, by the way, this has helped keep me going. You know, everything else is a bit up in the air, but knowing that you guys are still there, and like you said, I think it's maybe encouraged us to have a bit more of a laugh than we usually would. Now, I know that's not everybody's style. Some people might not like it, and some people might want to hear a more like serious football discussion, which is fine, but it just feels right to me at the moment to try and just keep it lighthearted and, you know, realise that everybody's going through a much more difficult time. So trying to just keep it lighthearted, have a bit of fun, and it seems to be working. Like people seem to be enjoying it. I'm certainly enjoying it. And like you mentioned, you know, I guess me, like everybody else, kind of going through this at the moment. But it's kept me going. It's given me a focus every day. So I like to think we can play just a tiny part in people's day. And even if it makes a difference to one or two people, then it's job done.
Definitely, and I think it does. There was one Saturday where obviously there was goals coming in and goal flashes and stuff, but there was one Saturday where I think you spoke about Mark Wilson getting a watch stole in Ibiza for a bit, an hour, and I was in the car that day with the kids, and it was brilliant. You know, it just takes your mind, I think, off other things, and as we say, the midweek show obviously is very busy. But one thing I wanted to ask, and Mick's very keen to talk to you about Scotland, obviously, in the Euros and the massive impact that's had on the country. But in terms of a team in crisis, obviously being Celtic now, I'm a Rangers fan, but I'm not kind of putting the boot in here, to be honest. I'm just reflecting on the year that Celtic have had. When things like Ferencváros, Prague, Prague twice, Dubai, obviously Neil Lennon doing his press conferences, the resignation, the sort of crisis and turmoil, is that what you guys are potentially looking for in the show to generate as much interest as possible?
I think just anything that's a big talking point. I mean, it doesn't need to be negative. It's something that was a positive could have the same impact, but I guess people will shout a bit louder about things that they're angry about. That's just human nature, and it's particularly human nature for people in this part of the world. So yeah, I think most people would probably expect that. If a bad result was in, you just start thinking, oh well, that's the show taken care of tomorrow, and that's the way it feels. And yeah, it does feel a bit like it's been one thing after another. And that shouldn't be confused for me saying like I'm delighted that Celtic are having a bad time because it's good for business. But these things, we're just there to almost reflect how people are feeling. And we've had it before. I mean, on the other side, as you well know, how many debacles have Rangers been in over the last few years, more than you'd care to remember. So yeah, there is that part of it that you think if something is happening and it's dramatic and it's got people talking, you do think, oh well, that's tomorrow's show taken care of. I can sit back. I don't need to do much planning because it's going to take care of itself. So yeah, it's been crazy. I can't believe we're in March already because it's been flying by.
Yeah, no, definitely.
When I have a listen to it, I always think, and I'm guessing you in the studio and that as well, I think Chris is after like a big negative thing, and that's all the calls are about. And I've heard you actually on the calls before saying, can we get back to the football? Can we actually get back to the games? Sometimes I'm always like, you listen to people, and like Chris, I'm a Rangers fan, so when people were on complaining about Celtic and they're blowing up, it's funny, obviously, right? But see, at the same time, I'm thinking, why do you put yourself through that? Why do you go on and shout for the whole country and you're going to be a gif on Twitter or a video on Twitter on that in the next couple of years? Why do you put yourself through it? It must be, I don't know if I could do it the way you used it, seriously. I'd do that on late day. Like,
I think it's just some people just love football, don't they? In this part of the world, they're so into it that they just want to vent. And I don't know what people's personal circumstances are, because we do get a lot of younger callers, older callers, people in the middle. So maybe some people don't have someone to talk to and they want to just vent, but I'm sure other people do and they just want to join in the discussion. And the kind of getting back to the football side, I'm not that fussed. I say that to try and strike a balance. If people want to keep phoning in about a refereeing decision, fine. It's they get to decide, not me. The reason I do that is so that if anybody is listening and they think that, oh well, I can't phone in about the football because they're only talking about the referees, I like to kind of remind people that it would be nice to get back to that at times. So I mean, take tonight for instance, and I don't know when your podcast is going to go out, but we're recording this on the day after Alfredo Morelos gets booked for diving. So I know for a fact that's going to dominate the show tonight, and at times I'll try and get away from it, but mission impossible, I think.
It was a blatant dive, to be fair. I should have been
get him jailed.
That's what you're thinking. The red card at half time is going to dominate the.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's usually that stuff that takes it, and I think one of the examples that I've got, which actually just sort of proves that, is on the Rangers forum. Follow. There's a Clyde won tonight thread. I don't know if you're aware of that, Gordon. I don't imagine you go on those forums, but
I would be terrified to read that. So
it started on the 19th of October 2020. So in amongst sort of Celtics.
2 days after the first fun.
Aye. And it's got 23,000 replies and 451 pages worth of people just talking about Clyde One. So that shows you. That just shows you exactly where it's at just now. It's for a lot of people. It's obviously high profile, and I suppose there's funny bits in that. But there was one phone call which I wanted to kind of bring up. There's a few actually that I've took down, but there was one recently, and the guy phoned. He was a Celtic fan, and you could tell that he was sort of visibly or upset, at the other end of the phone. And there was a wee bit of me that was kind of enjoying that he was, upset about the football, and then he started talking about his dad, obviously. And one thing I thought you done very skillfully, and I'd imagine you don't get training on this, was turn that around to being, trying to engage him and get more out of him in terms of the football, but actually turning it out to be quite supportive. And do you remember that phone call?
I remember it really well, because ultimately, and this is where this is going to sound cold-hearted, right? But see if somebody wants to phone up and get hysterically happy or hysterically upset or hysterically angry, just show any emotion on like an extreme scale, that's kind of what we're there for. That's good radio. So initially when the guy starts crying because Celtic are breaking his heart, you're thinking, wow, people are going to be glued to their radio here, like people are going to be like all over this. And then very quickly, he mentioned his dad, and it's like, right, hold on a minute, people are struggling with things that are much bigger than football, and then you need to just try and sort of rescue. And you're right. I mean, I've never had to deal with anything like that, because it went from being the kind of almost kind of jokey, and then he's in tears, and you're thinking, well, okay, up to him. And then it obviously becomes very serious. And I thought, well, the last thing I want now is for this guy to become a figure of ridicule. And it kind of, I made sure, I wanted to get in touch with him after it, like off air, and make sure he was all right and stuff like that. And actually, to be fair, a lot of people on Twitter that night were like, Gordon, I think you handled that pretty well. Like, and that made me feel a little bit better about it. A couple of people didn't agree with that, but that's fine. That's part of the course.
No, I think you did.
Really,
I think
was an interesting call. It was a roller coaster, because it went from being like the type of madness that people are looking for from Super Scoreboard to like, well, actually, people have real life struggles out there, and like, we should never overlook that, regardless of what your football rivalry is. So, it was a good example.
No, I think it was, and I think it's sort of typical, because it started off. I'm in a WhatsApp group, and it's Rangers fans, and that's where I found out that it was happening. So I turned my phone on. There was a guy in tears and stuff like that. So we were like obviously enjoying parts of that, I suppose, in terms of the football side, and then the conversation even in our group sort of changed a wee bit, and actually people felt bad, I think, for putting it in. But you guys have got a producer as well in the background, is that right? So I take it they've obviously got a bit of an overview in terms of if there is a sort of, I don't know, a mental health concern, or there is a wellbeing concern, that's very good, obviously, that you've followed it up. But I take it the show's got a bit of responsibility there as well.
Yeah, I guess so. Although, to be fair, I mean, those examples would be few and far between, so it's not something that we've ever really thought about. You get the odd thing through. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't. I'm not going to name people or whatever, so I think we should be fine. I actually got a message from a girl who was saying, Gordon, I just wanted to let you know that you'll recognise my partner's name, blah, from whatever he phones in a lot. And I did. I recognised the guy phones in a lot. And he said, just wanted to let you know that like he tried to take his own life last week. I found him. She found him and got there in time and stuff. And she's like, but he's, he loves the show so much, and just, thanks for kind of giving him something to listen to and whatever. And I was just like blown away with that. It's like, you just don't realise what's going on in people's lives. So again, we got in touch with him off air, and he was fitting in, tried to almost say, in your own time, like, why don't you come back on? You used to love phoning up, why don't you phone? And sure enough, he's back on regularly. If people, I won't say the name, but if I did, people would recognise it, because he phones in a lot. Every now and then there's a wee thing that you probably need to follow up on.
Definitely.
When you took over that job, you probably didn't expect to be that much involved in one person's life. It's probably a lot of people who follow that boat, but you didn't think if that woman, who obviously we don't know, one of the first people, I'm guessing, she's messaged is you. After
100%, 100%. Yeah, you're bang on. Like, I didn't expect that at all. Like, you do become a weird part of people's routine, and then maybe some people's lives just. I don't mean to put too fine a point on it as if we're like dead important, but yeah, to those people, I guess so. And we've had some like crazy calls, the things that people have been willing to open up about. whether it be like gambling addiction, mental health problems. I remember we had a guy who phoned in not so long ago, and he was like, I've never phoned before, just wanted to say that you're my football and that, and you've really helped me get through, because I've not been out the house since 1982. He said, I've got agoraphobia, and I've not been out the house since 1982. And I was just like, this is incredible that people feel that they can kind of share that. So yeah, and I know the show will always be known for its madness and its arguments and its banter and stuff. That's fine, but there have been, you know, umpteen times when it gets a wee bit more serious, and I guess that means more than all the kind of crazy stuff.
Oh, definitely, and just on the other, I'll touch on another caller who we all know is the bold John from Greenock. Obviously, we are in Clyde. I know John, and I know his son. Now, a lot of people actually thought that his phone call that he made when he was cancelling his Santa Ponza holiday was a fake person, basically. And we know that John is. We know that John always a massive Celtic fan. What do you get when you get like you know, you get your John or your Laurie Fidenis thing? 'Cause I don't think they go on as much as people think they go on the show. But what do you kind of feel like when they come on? Do you know it's going to be gold dust?
It just depends. I think it works in a couple of ways, right? So if these guys phone the show more than other people, then they're going to get on more. That's just kind of, you know, law of averages. We would always try to give people a fair crack. So if John phones in, if John goes on air on Monday and then he phones again on Tuesday, we would try and think, well, like that's no fair on other people. But then at the same time, these people almost become like a sort of character, if you like. And then say Celtic then get beat, my Twitter will light up with Rangers fans being like, come on, let's hear from John, let's hear from Laurie. And you're like, all right, okay, because on one hand I'm thinking, nah, don't put them on because they're on a lot. But on the other hand, because of that, people will want to hear them. So it kind of works both ways. And you're right, John's phones and talks about Celtic all the time. I had no doubt the Santa Ponza holiday cancellation he's actually brought it up again since, I think. So I'm sure he'll get up at some point.
Character, massive Celtic family, to be honest. Like all of them. Aye, same guy.
Gordon, see what you said earlier on. Just see hosting the show during a pandemic. Did that bring you some added pressure? Because you know a lot more people are going to be tuning in, and that is going to be such a part of their routine because they're in the house. Yeah. Did it bring more pressure to you and the guys in the studio?
No, I don't think in so much pressure. There was just a heightened awareness that maybe we do need to try and cheer people up a little bit, just a little bit more, and also the pressure of kind of getting the tone right. I would say more of like, football is not the most important thing at the moment. This pandemic is, and people try to get through it. But at the same time, this is a football show. So when we're talking about like, oh, it's terrible that the leagues can't restart or whatever, that's not us saying that football is more important than people's lives. And it was just hard to find that balance, I think, between getting the tone right. Yeah. That was the thing that worried me, and I probably sounded a bit like a broken record. I kept saying that, you know, like we know football is not the most important thing, but we need to look at things from a football perspective, and the pressure of not straying too far into things that we don't know about. I mean, people say we don't know about anything, but you know, and the temptation with this, like everybody's doing, oh, you know, I've heard that this about the vaccine or the infection rate or the R number or whatever. And I thought it was just about trying to keep people at the right level of informed without straying into areas that we shouldn't be talking about. So I think that was where the pressure came from.
Yeah.
No, that's a good question. And I think that one of the other things that I pick up as well is, you see this on Twitter all the time, and it's people who genuinely believe that there isn't real Motherwell fans out there, and that you actually support Rangers or Celtic. And you see things like, I was having a look on that forum today, and there's like comments like, oh, his mask has slipped, and you know, you get all that. That must really annoy you.
Yeah, sometimes I kind of keep changing my mind on it, whereas like sometimes I'm like, no, it doesn't annoy me in the slightest, because like, who cares? Like, who cares what people think? Ultimately, what you've got to remember is what is actually happening there is a group of biased people are telling me that I'm biased. So think about that for a second. That's never going to work, because but by their own admission, if you're a massive Rangers fan or a massive Celtic fan, you are biased by definition, like whether you realise it or not. So why would your opinion on what is biased like matter to me? And then the other side of it, yeah, I do get a little bit frustrated where I'm just like, people, do you actually realise that not everything is seen through that blue or green lens. Like, there are people out there who support Motherwell or St Mirren or Partick Thistle or whatever, and the thing is that it's hard to explain this, right? But it's not even as if I'm like a lukewarm Motherwell fan. I'm like, see, emotionally, like, the defeats still like put me in a bad mood. I'm absolutely buzzing when they win. I've always been like that. I used to follow them everywhere. Season tickets, European trips. I was a ball boy at Fir Park for a couple of seasons. So that's actually the bit that I find quite strange, is not only they don't realise how strongly I actually feel for the club, but whatever, people can think what they like, it's fine.
If you're reporting on a Motherwell game, though, this must come with practice, but I've noticed, like, if you're saying, right, Motherwell, they've scored a goal, they've conceded a goal, you keep it just, you're so balanced, you wouldn't tell you're a Motherwell fan, but I think that must come with years of being able to do it. Were you like that at first? Were you able to not get overexcited in your voice?
Actually, it's probably gone the opposite, believe it or not. So I think at the start, I would have been desperate to hide it. And there does become a point where if you've got your game face on and you're just trying your best to take in what's happened, and it wouldn't matter to me, because if another team scored in the last minute against Motherwell, I'm disappointed, but that's dramatic for them, and then it's up to me to kind of do my job. What's actually changed now a little bit, because I host the show and we can have a bit more of an informal discussion, is I'm a bit more open actually about the fact that I'm a Motherwell fan, and if a goal goes in, the guys will say, "Oh, look at the smile on his face. We know exactly who's just scored," and stuff like that. So it's actually gone the opposite way from what you'd expect. Now I'm a bit more willing to be happy about it than I would be at the start.
I see, I couldn't do that. See, if Celtic scored, I'd be dancing about the studio, but again, that's I don't do your job, obviously. But I remember, like, when you're doing the Serbia game, it must have been easier for you to do, because obviously everybody's all Scotland fans, and you really get into it, which was brilliant. I mean, I was exactly the same.
Yeah, there's been a couple like that you're just allowed to. I was reporting from Hampden when Griffiths scored these free kicks, and I was going absolutely mental, like jumping up and down in the press box like an idiot. But you're kind of allowed to do that, I think, when it's Scotland. People don't care, so that was good that night. That was just like 3 Scotland fans just watching the game, so I don't think any Serbians were listening, so it was fine.
That's one of the few qualifiers I missed, because I was actually at Chris's stag do, so I was in a Scottish bar in Ibiza at the time, which was quite a cool, leave it at that. But,
do you remember that game, Mick? Do you remember much of that?
I remember crying for happy and sad reasons, but I think that was it. But no, I was a bit drunk.
You said now that you host it, like, you're more open. When did you actually start hosting it?
So this is coming towards this is my 4th season. So it was Celtic's invincible treble
Don't
season.
Don't talk about that too much.
After that, so that's when because I remember that was like my last sort of that was like my last time like reporting on a game, if you like. So I remember being at that cup final. Tom Rogic scored, and then it would be the start of the next season, I'm sure. Yeah, so Brendan Rodgers' second season.
That must have made you, well, buzzing obviously, but you're on with, arguably, depends what you look at it, well-respected journalists every night, and you were probably quite young when you got promoted to hosting it, so it must be quite a...
Yeah, it was a kind of mix of emotions, because, like, I think naturally I'm obviously quite a confident person. I think you have to be to do that job, but maybe not as confident as people would expect. And I think, like, if they've probably got my own sort of fears or insecurities or whatever. So when I got offered the job, I was a bit tentative, in the sense that my first thought was like, oh God, I hope I can do this justice, and I hope people like me, and I hope I don't make an arse of it, and what if it's not a success, and all the kind of usual doubts that creep in. And then I think it's natural to feel then what I maybe am a bit more resilient at is quickly kind of pushing into one side and being like, oh, look, it's too good an opportunity to turn down, like go for it 2-footed and see what happens. So it was a mix, but it's been a roller coaster.
Definitely. I mean, you've been great. I think the impartiality does help, because obviously, Jerry McCulloch was the previous guy, and he's now at Celtic TV, and who saw that coming? Definitely everybody. So I think it helps with the impartiality, definitely, because you're able to say things maybe and throw wee sort of bombs out there or whatever. most people will take that as obviously a non-Old Firm fan. So I think it does. It helps with that balance, particularly if you've got Alex Ray and Mark Wilson in the studio. You know, it's not as if it's 2v1 or anything. So
yeah, I think, to be fair, I think perception is important, though. You know, there might be things that, because confirmation bias is a big thing. So if people seriously think I'm a Celtic fan or a Rangers fan, or they've heard that or whatever, they would then go looking for examples of that. So I think perception is important. You know, I'll often hear this about Jerry, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure that if you were to strip it all back, if you didn't know where he was now and you hadn't heard anything about him, was he actually, you know, is anyone actually that biased as people perceive, or is it people's perception? And sometimes you can't escape that. Sometimes perception's important. So I do think it has helped me to, not in everyone's mind, like you say, about the follow thread or whatever it is, but at least some people think that I come from a neutral viewpoint, and that helps you.
Oh, definitely. And I think that brings us on nicely for Mick to talk about the Euros. I'll leave it up to you, Mick. I know you're a big fan of it.
Finally, something I can smile about. No, it's just, I mean, it was, as I said, I mean, I watched the game and then I listened to the radio because I knew you were doing like an extended show if we won. And it was just to get your thoughts on the game itself first. I mean, were you expecting us to qualify?
Yes, in the sense that I'm just kind of like one of these like mad optimistic Scotland fans where I just think like anything's possible. But I thought we were going to be bang up against it, and after 10 minutes, I just couldn't believe how comfortable we were, and that really like jarred me, and that sort of like flipped my mindset a wee bit, because I really could not see that coming. Like, and you do get. I'm not saying it always ends up that way, but you always get a feeling for a game in the first 10 minutes where I'm like, there is actually nothing to fear here. Like, there isn't all those things I thought before the game about Mitrovic or Milinkovic, Savic or whatever. Like, they look ordinary. They're just human. They're on the same pitch as us, and actually we look better. So, and of course we kind of made the whole Scotland drama of it and played with the emotions majorly. So I kind of thought we could, and but it was a pleasant surprise. I think once the game got going on, I kind of grew in confidence. Once they equalised, I thought we were out. I didn't see us kicking on from there because we had made those changes and we were nowhere near as much of a threat. So,
no,
what a night.
I thought that as well, to be honest. I mean, we were so comfortable. We dominated the full game, apart from, I think we had a dodgy spell in extra time. But as soon as they equalised, I thought, right, classic Scotland, we'll kind of piss all of them and then that will happen. But, I mean, what was the studio like? Did you stay at the end? Was there any beers after the show was finished, or was it just...
there was a couple upstairs, to be fair. Although I think Gordon and Mark went home and I went up, but there was a few other shows on different, like boring you for the detail, like there was some other shows on Clyde 2 and like some other stations within our group, so there was actually a lot of people in the building at the time, and a couple of the bosses and stuff, and there was some pizzas and whatever else, and but what a night, because I mean we were meant to finish at 10 I think, and then we were going to stay on till 11 if it went to extra time. And then because everybody was buzzing and the phone lines were going nuts, we just stayed on till 12 and we just kept going and going. So we had been on 6 hours at that point. We could have stayed on all night. It was amazing. I've got the show must finish at like an exact time every night, right? I'm boring you with the detail here, but that time changes. So during the show, I'll get handed a bit of paper with a time written on it down to the exact second. And I need to then hit the theme tune that you hear, the Super Scoreboard song. I need to start playing it at that very specific second so that the show finishes bang on time. And I'll eventually just turn the volume up, crank it up, and then the show will finish. So the tune was actually playing, the music was playing, we were about to finish, and I'm like looking through the window at the producer, pointing my watch, like can we stay on? Can we go till midnight? I'm like trying to mouth it. And he's on the phone, like trying to get permission. Then he's like to me, no, we need to finish. I'm like, fine. And then someone appears at the window behind him, because it's like a kind of a glass partition. Someone's behind him and is going like, it's fine, like it's okay, like stay on. And it was the beauty of live radio. It was chaos, but it was brilliant.
I mean, it gave everybody a massive lift, especially because of the pandemic and, you know, the way everybody was feeling. But after 22 years as well, I mean, I think, see the the following shows as well. I mean, the feel good factor was the same. Everybody was buzzing for so long, and then I think as soon as Celtic Rangers get involved again and started playing, everybody get back into the whole kind of West of Scotland mindset, and life became terrible again.
No, you're right. It was an amazing change of pace. Like, people were just phoning for the next few days, basically. You know, like, nothing can spoil my mood. That's the sort of thing they were saying. Like, it's made such a difference to me. It's brought my family together. It's the first time I've watched Scotland with my kids. I was in tears, or whatever it was. It meant so much. And you're right, the feel good factor lasted quite a bit, but I've forgotten what it was like now because we've got into all the chaos again.
I just say, Mick, I think one of the most powerful bits that night was Ryan Christie's interview. I think, you know, obviously I'm speaking from a Rangers fan perspective. It didn't matter, and as when we were watching it with my son, we were both. My son was getting a bit emotional watching him, and it just, I think he summed up a lot of what we've been going through and how much that meant to him. It was amazing to see how much that meant to him, and I'd imagine if you would have interviewed most of the players, they would have maybe have had the same feelings, you know.
Oh, totally, and they've been able to kind of open up and show that emotion was important for people. I think most people then would have felt that watching it. Like you say, for a couple of nights at least, it broke down those barriers. Rangers fans were loving that. We got loads of calls after saying, I mean, how good was it to see Callum McGregor and Ryan Jack together in the midfield? And it seems like a long time ago now, but no, you're right. I think the emotion was there for everybody to see. We had I was just chancing my luck, texting a couple of the players that I know, being like, look, we're on till midnight, somebody needs to come on this show. And Kieran Tierney came on the show from the dressing room, basically, on his phone, and just you could just hear the emotion there and how much it meant to them. It was brilliant.
You think we'll qualify for the group? Big ask.
Now, is he, because it's been out of sight a little bit and because of everything that's going on, it feels a bit weird. I mean, even today now there's like discussions of, are we even going to get a game at Hampden? Like, the Scottish Government's going to need to make commitments. So I feel like I've not quite like focused on it yet. Some of England's individuals are starting to stress me out. Like, I do always, like I say, I just fancy us to win all the time, and I like to be positive, but I'm not really fancying coming up against Phil Foden too much.
He looks incredible. I'm worried about playing him myself.
And listen, I'm a big Motherwell fan, and I know him, and he's a great guy, and I'm sure he wouldn't mind me saying, like, can Stephen O'Donnell shackle Raheem Sterling? I don't know. I just don't know. I love big Declan Gallagher as well. Can he stop Harry Kane? So it's stressing me out a wee bit, but do you know what? It's been so long. Let's just enjoy being there.
We've got this week a 50-seater bus booked to go down to London, so that would be quite messy. But I'm praying we get there. Imagine we qualify after all this time and we can't go. It's just classic Scotland. So I'm hoping.
I know it'd be typical. We're the same. We really don't know what we're doing yet. I mean, in an ideal world, the show would come live from London a few nights. We just don't know if that's possible, and I don't know when we will know. So it's a shame, but that's just been reflected everywhere. You know, for the Rangers fans here, waited so long for a title, you're not even going to be in the stadium to celebrate it. You know, limited options for celebrating it. When Celtic clinched 9 in a row last year, just muted celebrations. It doesn't feel the same just now. I think you have to acknowledge that. I'm sure the Rangers fans will enjoy it and they'll love it when it comes around, but it's not the same, is it? I mean, it's just not the same.
It doesn't count. It really doesn't count.
I need to jump off, Gordon, right? But I've got one question before I go. It's just a bit of a change of pace. But on Sunday, in fact it was Monday, it was the day after the Scottish Cup final, or the League Cup final, Sean Rooney said something about playing cuppy doubles, and you tweeted saying how that was the correct term, and we just worked out you're wrong. Basically, it's not more of a question, more of a statement.
So what's your take on it?
Well, I want to let Enter go first because I'm quite a bit younger than Chris. He's a good 20 odd year old on me, but World of Dubs, I'd call it.
World of Dubs.
World of Dubs.
World of Dubs.
Have you never heard that? Mate, you need to put that out on the show and see. You'll get a lot of people retaliating.
I did on Twitter. I think I might do it actually on Saturday. I mean, I can see that. That's not the most offensive one I've heard, because I think it clearly was called World Cuppy. I think originally, but I think I can see what's happened here. So we've decided to drop the world. You guys have kept it. That sounds quite modern, though. Worldy and dubs. That sounds like you're really down with the kids. I feel like I'm from a slightly different time, but I've heard all sorts of terrible suggestions. I'm not sure. I'm sticking with copy doubles, I must admit. Copy singles or copy doubles.
World of Dubs, I think that was what it was in the 90s anyway, so I've not played it in a while, to be fair.
By the way, I'd kill for a game of that right now.
It's been a while.
I need to jump off, so I can't do this beat pundit of it. So
cool.
Good luck, Gordon. Hope you beat Mick. And
take care.
Cheers.
Catch it. See you. Enjoy.
So, that brings us on to the beat the pundit we're going to do, and it's obviously between you guys now. I was going to do basically a coin toss to see who would get it there between Mick and Moody. So I was going to be dead fancy Mick and use breakout rooms, but that's got disaster written all over it. So do you just want to go into another room basically? Turn your audio down.
Okay, hold on, right.
We need to... Great. Right, Gordon. So, beat the pundit. Obviously, cleared that way. You were cool to do this beforehand.
Yep.
And you're up against Mick, who, if you don't beat him, then it's pretty bad, to be honest.
I think Mick might beat me, to be honest. I've just got a wee feeling.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
I think he might.
So, we'll get started. Moody was going to do all the fancy wee music and stuff like that, but obviously he's got to go and go back to work, so it's just one of those ones. So, first question. Who scored Scotland's last penalty against Serbia?
Kenny McLean.
Number 2, what team is currently 6th in the SPFL?
St Mirren.
Mm-hmm. What team have the least away points in the SPFL?
Motherwell. No, away. No, talking rubbish. I don't know. If you need to accept my first answer, then I'm goosed, but I'd probably go for Ross County or something. Not Motherwell.
Okay, this is one for Mick. When Rangers are crowned deserved and runaway champions, how many titles will they have won?
Are you going to now play this and say Super Scoreboard host says it's definitely the 55th and not the first because Rangers didn't die? No. And then I'll get all sorts of drama. So take your pick, 55.
55. Good man. How many points did Celtic get in this season's Europa League group stage?
Oh, goodness right. So, not that many. 4? Help me think. So they drew with Lille and they beat Lille. Lost twice to Milan. 4, I think.
Okay. Jason also had the timer, so just asking it another 2 questions and we'll bring Mick back in. Okay, so Lyndon Dykes played for Livy and what other Scottish club?
Queen of the South.
This one's for you. What was the score the last time Motherwell played Hamilton?
Oh, God, don't remind me. It was a pumping. That's so ridiculous that I can't specifically remember because it was so many. It was...
It's bad, isn't it?
Aye, really bad. 4-1.
Okay.
Try to forget about that.
I'll finish with an 8th just on a good number. Who scored the winner in the Betfred Cup final?
It was Sean Rooney.
Sean Rooney. Brilliant. Right, so now I need to let Mick know he needs to come back in.
You've not been listening this full time.
That's what I think as well. That's what. To be fair, you've done well there, mate. If he's getting anywhere near that, that's good. I would imagine he does. And I think that's probably one of the things, I've messaged him there, that's probably one of the things that people say as well when you've got the guys listening at home, or Hugh listening at home and stuff like that, would beat the pundit, thinking that he's actually listening to the questions, but you've got to trust that he's not, I suppose. You know?
I was so impressed. I thought we were going into a breakout room. I wasn't prepared for that.
No.
I don't cheat. I don't believe in it. So you'll see how terrible my knowledge is. So.
We'll see. Okay, so number 1, it's 8 questions. I was planning to do 30 seconds and stuff like that, and Moody was going to time it, but that never worked out. So, number 1, who scored Scotland's last penalty versus Serbia?
Kenny McLean.
I'm just getting a wee board here that I'm marking. What team is currently 6th in the SPFL?
Is Livingston.
What team have the least away points in the SPFL?
Ross County.
When Rangers are crowned deserved and runaway champions, how many titles will they have won?
Oh, come on. 55, you would say, but I would say something else. But
what you going with? What's the correct answer?
You've hold this over me for life, right? Take your 55, go on, move on.
Love it. Okay, how many points did Celtic get in this season's Europa League group?
4, I think. Yeah, call it 4. High 4.
Lyndon Dykes played for Livy and what other Scottish club?
Queen of the South.
And what was the score the last time Motherwell played Hamilton?
4-1 Hamilton. Oh, that's shocking to God. That's not nice.
I know. Who scored the winner in last weekend's Betfred Cup final?
Rooney. Sean Rooney.
Okay. So, we've got a winner by 1 point. So, we'll just go through the answers. Yes, Kenny McLean scored the first penalty. You both get that one right. What team is currently 6th in the SPFL? Gordon, you said St Mirren. Mick, you said Livy, did you say? St Mirren is correct answer, so Gordon's ahead there. What team have the least away points in the SPFL? You both get this wrong. It's Kilmarnock. They've only got 10 points. When Rangers are crowned deserved and runaway champions, it will be 55 titles. You both toiled with that one there, to be honest, but you got it right eventually. Number 5, 4 points for Celtic in the group stage. Lyndon Dykes, Queen of the South, the big man. 7-4-1 it was to. That was a good answer, Mick, by the way.
Aye, well done.
Aye, it was class.
I was trying to forget about it.
And wrapping up, obviously, Sean Rooney got the goal. Cracking player, by the way. First time I've actually really properly watched him in a neutral perspective. So, Gordon, you win by 1 point. So, well done, mate.
That was a good effort. You had me worried there because we said the same answer for pretty much everything. I'd forgotten about my St Mirren shout, so I've just picked you. But
I was going to go St Mirren. I was shocked at Ross County, Kilmarnock get the least away points. I really didn't expect that.
See, I think Motherwell have got the worst home record, I think, or something. And I said Motherwell, and then I thought it was Ross County as well. So there we go.
That's it.
I'll need to try and get. I've tried to unbeat upon it a couple of times, but you can never get through. But I
keep them coming. Keep trying.
But see, doing it for home, it's like I've got this 5.6 points, but as soon as I go in, this would collapse, and I would just fold. So I'll keep trying. We'll see what happens.
No, that was great. Cheers for that. Cheers for doing that. And I suppose just wrapping it up, Gordon, in terms of coming on the show, and I suppose sort of circling back to our main point, which is providing support to people for their mental health, their well-being, and also as well for suicide prevention. Pretty heavy subjects, obviously, but we try and make it as light-hearted as possible. But one of the things I wanted to kind of touch on is obviously the masculine environment, and if you like, in terms of Clyde Superscoreboard and the studio, guys, it's like it's probably a dressing room for the guys, isn't it? And that have retired and stuff like that. I think it plays a massive role for people, obviously, in supporting that in the Saturday and stuff like that, and we've obviously touched on that. So hopefully, moving forward, that you guys continue to do that. I really praise you for the mental health raising awareness stuff that you continue to do on the show. So just from my point of view, and obviously running this group, I just want to obviously thank you for that, and obviously thank you for continuing to provide a lot of goodwill, obviously, in terms of the listening to the show and structure and routine, and I said this on another podcast, but long live the football for me. When people are talking about cancelling seasons and stuff, it doesn't bear thinking about, so thank you for that, and thank you, for coming on the show. I know your time's precious and stuff like that, so really do appreciate you coming on and speaking to us.
No problem. I enjoyed it. Anytime, anything I can help with, or you think the guys can get involved with, feel free to get in touch and see what we can do.
Brilliant, Gordon. Thanks very much, mate. Really appreciate it.
Take care.
Cheers.
Catch you later.
Thanks, guys. Gordon. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.